Hello and welcome to Note to File, a clinical research podcast.
A collection of interviews, candid commentary, and general nonsense for the clinical research community.
Check us out at notetofilepodcast.com.
And now, without further ado, on to the show.
All right, guys, welcome to another Note to File. Denali, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going pretty well. It's July 23rd today.
It is July 23rd today, all day long.
All day, from midnight to midnight.
That's how it works. And it's also the day is today. Okay, we'll start. It's National Vanilla Ice Cream Day.
I'm not mad at that. I actually prefer vanilla ice cream over chocolate.
Yeah, I think I do too. It just depends. I feel like vanilla ice cream gets a lot of hate, but it's solid.
I don't know. I mean, full disclosure, like I'm not the biggest chocolate person in the world. Like I'm not against it, but I would much rather have like probably other flavored desserts.
Well, in that case, then maybe you'll be not as happy to know it's also peanut butter and chocolate day, apparently.
Okay.
So
it's a good combo, but yeah, it's not like I like Reese's Pieces, all those things, but.
You ever meet people who call them Reese's?
Reese's Pieces. So now you're going to make me think about it, like how I say it.
No, I hate it when people say, if you say it that way, don't talk to me.
This is the end of Note to File.
If you're in the comments, if you're watching and you say Reese's instead of Reese's, leave a comment so I know never to talk to you. Or defend yourself.
I feel like I say it Reese's, but see, like I feel like it's one of those words where you say it that way, and now I have to think about how I say it.
I mean,
you make fun of how I say shit all the time, so now I'm going to overthink it.
That's because you talk funny. It's not my fault. It's apparently International Yada 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 Day, which is Seinfeld related reference for anyone not familiar.
Okay.
I still think one of the best comedies. I still think George Costanza is one of the greatest comic characters of all time.
I've told you my Jerry Seinfeld story, right? I shared.
I don't know.
My grandpa was a dentist on Long Island, and he was Jerry Seinfeld's dentist when he was a child.
I mean, Seinfeld's got some big chompers too.
I know.
I hope he made good money doing that.
And my aunt was his square dancing partner in 4th grade gym class.
Okay, well, you're basically famous. You've basically been on Seinfeld.
BFFs. It's pretty much the same.
Nailed it. Okay. I'm sure it's some other days, but actually, I guess if anything would be halfway related, it's World Sjogren's Day. If you're familiar with Sjogren's syndrome, which is an autoimmune disease.
So just like a awareness day?
Yeah, more or less.
Okay.
So that's nice. I honestly don't know much about it. I've seen some of those studies come out over the last several years, but I'm not. I think it's somewhat rare. Maybe I've never worked on any myself.
I know of it, but similar. Or I've heard of it. It's just not something I've dealt.
Well, you know what? Today's the day that you should go learn about it.
Learn about it. Google it.
It's a day to learn. There you go.
There you go. You want to know what else is something fun?
What is fun?
Yesterday, I was on my Oura app, like my health ring app. And it brings up, like, you want to be on a research study? And I feel like this has happened to me once before. And I tried to click into it and I didn't click fast enough and it must have filled up or something. But I clicked it and it was be on this research study. And I had to go through this whole consent process, which was the extent of me reading Apple's terms and conditions, scrolling to the bottom, clicking, which in retrospect, I probably should have read through it, but I feel like it's low risk. But it's look at what does it even call it? Like a brain health. They're testing brain health.
How?
So I did the first part of it, and it's basically you put in some basic information like your demographics and height, weight, etc. And then you put in some more just general status of how you are at this moment, the past 7 days. And then you do this numbers and shapes matching, and they'll show you a shape, and then you have to draw it on your screen. It's basically how fast and error proof you can do it, and you're supposed to do it multiple days in a row. And then there's like a more advanced one that kept crashing the app. So, maybe I'll try it today and see what it does. But it's interesting.
It's good to know that, technology snafus are everywhere, not just
universal.
All right. And even a consumer grade app that's trying to do research. I've seen stuff like that come up occasionally. I also use Aura.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the past I used Whoop, and I feel like they kind of have done the same. I don't know if you've seen too, like see job postings for like clinical trial positions within some of these companies. So I think it'll be kind of interesting to see. I mean, you would think they have access to all kinds of data, which should be able to do at least some cool stuff with it.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, like it's like 24/7 biometric tracking, right?
Mhm.
Like it's tracking temperature and heart rate and I don't know, like HRVs and pulse, like all of the things. So it's getting that in me on a consistent basis. And then I put in a few little like questionnaire type things about how I'm doing. It tracks that piece, the cognitive part over time. And then apparently some type of like matching stuff tells them something.
Sure.
We'll see.
We will. I'm honestly surprised we haven't seen any of that stuff make its way into like normal clinical trials. Although, and I haven't kept up, but I know that there was a bunch of not scandal, but controversy about some of these companies trying to make like more clinical type claims based off of what they are between Whoop, Apple Watch, and Aura. I can't remember who, because I think Apple has some actually like
more clinical
clinically
grade stuff.
certified, whatever, and then or maybe Aura tried to, and they were like, "No, you can't do that." So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I will say again, for all the talk of wearables, like I don't see any like in the clinical trials we've done. We saw a few years back, but I feel like they kind of not so much anymore.
Well, I also feel like too, it's like some of it is so, especially like the ones you're wearing all of the time. Like it's not like you could like take your blood pressure on this at home blood pressure off, and like this is the one thing you do this period of time where it's a little bit more controlled. Like I can imagine there's a significant amount of variability in like how folks are using it and how compliant they are with using it, like, and how much can you like truly basis or understand even where that variation is, whether it's the device itself that's variability, it's how the person's using it. Like how often have I taken off my ring for charging and I'm like forgotten it, or you change fingers, does that have an impact? And how do they control that to know if it's the device, if it's the user? There's just not enough like oversight into that 24/7 wearing process, I don't think.
Yeah, that's true. I guess we'll see. I feel like it's another one of those things that was kind of like just very hinted at, was going to be like, oh, we're going to have wearables and trials all the time now. We're going to generate a lot of data. And again, I just haven't really seen it come to fruition.
I mean, also there's a difference between generating data and then doing something with that data.
Well, I mean, that's a problem
now,
regardless of how it's being collected. Right. I mean, it's a study we're dealing with right now where I'm like, we've got to do all this stuff as part of screening. None of it qualifies the patient, but it makes it harder because you have to squeeze in more of this stuff, and then a procedure has to happen. And again, it's still a big problem. We're just collecting a lot of data for what? It's not a safety. It's not based on inclusion, exclusion. It's not an endpoint. Why?
Is it for like, I mean, I think maybe there's this idea of like real world evidence or other, real world data where you just like, now you have this data. And there's this whole idea of like, maybe you have a question after that you could answer. I don't know.
I mean, apparently, the more data, the better. That seems to
me. It seems either it's fear-based or greed-based, and neither seem particularly applicable to the protocols at hand.
Yeah. Well, continues to be a problem, but hey, we get paid. At least we get paid. We get paid for them. So you know what?
There you go.
Sure. Stack them up. All right. What are we talking about today? What do we got?
I think an article that came across the desk was about this sort of letter. Yeah, like I don't even know what this is, like a report or a letter about the golden age of scientific discovery out of the White House office.
Yeah, just in the last couple of days, it looks like.
Yeah, I think it was Monday or Tuesday.
A new report entitled "Science: A New Golden Age."
There's a certain level of something. Calling yourself the new golden age as you're announcing it happening.
It hasn't happened yet, but we're making it.
But
we're making it the case.
Golden. Which I thought, I mean, it was more, it's generic, right? Like it has to do with like science in America across the board. So not just clinical trials, but there was pieces of it that, explicitly call out clinical trials, specifically. I think it's kind of similar to what we talked about last week when we had Anthony on, who was talking about like the Trial Blazers initiative. And that kind of ties into some of this. I mean, obviously that report was a little bit bigger, but it's talking about how like, trials we've identified like competitive weaknesses and they're too expensive and too slow and too burdensome now in the US. And what we need to do, we're looking at that sort of head external to the US. So then thinking about like, okay, how do we now put more emphasis on US-based research? Because we're now identifying that trials in the US are a weakness is a big theme that they kind of had here. Like trials are slow. There's administrative burden. They're hard to do in the US. So we're seeing them go external, which is a problem according to this report. And then also going into saying like, okay, well now we need to make these more US centric and put things in place to make that happen.
Yeah, and it does. I mean, for whatever it's worth, I admittedly have not read the full. However many pages, about 123 pages.
Too many pages.
It does. I mean, look, it does touch on clinical trials. It mentions that they've grown, exceedingly costly. And that, people are going to other places to do it, which, I mean, honestly, this is, seems funny to me because that's exactly how capitalism is supposed to work, and we love our capitalism. So,
well,
it costs too much.
No, we love it when it makes us money.
Right? Yeah, fair. It makes some claims here too. I'm curious, and I need to go. I want to check some of the sources here. It does say that per patient costs for clinical trials are far higher here than in other economies, as it says.
That's well known, though. I mean, you go to anywhere in Eastern Europe, certain parts in Asia, Africa, like you pay people less, like even like wages. That could be like the living wage is different in India compared to the living wage here. So like it's like saying you have to pay someone less if they work in India, if you run a clinical trial in India, than you do here. But that's also the economy that they're in. Like it's
yeah. I mean, I guess that's true,
right?
I guess that's true. Although, America doesn't really, we're not like a manufacturer. We're basically like a service-based economy, right? So you'd think we would maybe figure that out. I don't know. Interesting.
Yeah.
Shout out to a random on YouTube.
What are we doing?
I don't know. Just
this is what we normally do.
Listen, bro.
Exactly.
Description says endless nonsense. Exactly, that's what it is. This is if you're here on accident, you've made poor life choices. This is a podcast about clinical research, but anyways, yeah. So interesting. But I mean, at this point, how many papers and proclamations are they going to put out? I mean, I feel like they're just saying the same thing over and over through various papers, but like, well, what?
That's what I think. Like the best description of all of this was like this was a strategic vision document, and like it wasn't guidance. It wasn't changing in regulations. It was just a lot of like we're gonna make things faster and better through AI and make it more US centric. But there was, for being 100 and some pages, had very little teeth or meat to it, in my perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see what all of this actually does or doesn't do.
It feels like even less sticky than FDA guidance.
Yeah, I'd be curious, and I want to read this through a little bit more closely. Talks about infrastructure and things like that. I mean, look, again, I don't want to rip on any of it too much before I read it, because we all know there are problems here.
Well, I think no one would argue that the problems they're highlighting are not real. I think that's also kind of obvious for some of this, where it's like, yeah, there's an administrative burden.
But now someone at the White House is saying it. So,
well, and to be fair, I think Anthony made this point last week where he talked about like when in the past however many decades have you seen clinical trials get this much headline space in DC.
Sure.
Which is regardless if anything happens, still a net positive.
Yeah.
Probably.
Probably. I mean, it admittedly makes me nervous though, because it could be worse. It could be made worse. And so far, a lot of things the administration touched haven't gotten significantly better. So I mean, yes, on the one hand, people are talking about it, and that's good, and I'm happy for that. On the other hand, now they're talking about it. What are they going to do?
Yeah.
I mean, so far again, the irony in like blindly cutting all of the grants and cutting off a bunch of research at the knees, and then to have the gall to be like, why does anyone want to do research here? We don't get it.
Yeah.
Is hard to reconcile, right? Yeah. I mean,
agreed. Yeah. It's short-sighted and ignorant is the nice way to put it.
Well, I guess we'll see. I'm going to read more into this, and maybe we can, maybe we can like take some chunks on some of the upcoming note to files and break down different parts of some of this stuff a little bit.
And also see more detail. If anything's actually happening too in those spaces. Again, like it talks about AI, it talks about reducing administrative burden. It talks about making them more centric and putting regulations in place to like help make that happen, or make it harder to do research elsewhere. It's a little bit on the fence there. But yeah, I think it'd be interesting to dive into, besides just publishing a report and saying the things, is anything actually happening, and what could that look like?
Yeah, well, maybe we'll find out.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll find out. Another big, thing, if you've been paying attention, everyone seems to have an opinion about. I mean, in fairness, I also posted about it. And, Reddit's not the best source, but I just wanted to pull this up because at least you've got some people anonymously talking about it. Kalshi now offering sports style betting on clinical trial results, which we did an episode a little while ago. It was not Kalshi. I don't even remember what the platform was, but it was the same kind of deal.
And that was, so the one we fucked around with, like, wouldn't let us do anything because we weren't, because of our IP address domains and locations.
Yeah, I think it was in the country. Yeah, I didn't think that people in the US couldn't bet.
But now it's taking it to a more mainstream platform, I guess. Similar concept.
Yeah. And I will say, I don't know, the consensus seems to be just disdain. I mean, I'm disgusted. Oh, this feels repulsive. People are signing a petition against it. This is interesting to me, the concept of that there might be, insider trading going on with some of these things, which I'm not smart enough to know what sort of rules these sports books are bound to,
and Aura pulled.
Well, I mean, sure, that's a whole nother can of worms, but I don't know what they're bound to necessarily. So I don't know. Again, look, I mean, I don't think it's great. I also think that the response from the industry has maybe been a little bit, overboard. I mean, what do you think this is going to do? What do you think this is really going to do, to the clinical trial industry, if anything?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to have an impact. I think, I don't think it's mainstream enough. I don't think there's going to be enough traction. I mean, we've talked about even this podcast topic is fairly niche, right? It's how generalizable is this to the greater public for it to make an impact at large in drug development, right? I also think our industry tends to get a little too high and mighty on our morals about some stuff. And some are going to make sense. We are very ethics bound industry, right?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. It makes sense.
I understand it. Yeah.
But I think it gets a little, we like to clutch our pearls a lot. And I feel like this is one of those things where, I don't necessarily agree with it. I don't see its value, but I also don't see it being particularly impactful. Yeah.
And again, I know that it, I guess by design, should exclude insiders, but my point was kind of like, I wonder if there's a world where eventually, like, if the operational like reality of trials translates into financial market in that way, like, I don't think that's a bad thing. Potentially. Now, again, I don't also know. There's maybe I'm like this is a monkey paw situation where, like, be careful what you wish for. You end up with like some unintended consequence. But I don't know if I've ever talked about this, but like back when I first started my site, I did a bunch of work. Well, I didn't do a bunch of work. I signed up on some of those like gig websites. So like Fiverr and Upwork. I don't know if you've ever heard of
Okay.
those. Upwork is one, but like I was
I've
like,
heard of those for like other, not clinical trial stuff.
yeah, there's not a lot on there, but I actually
Okay.
got some work doing consulting on there. But the people I was consulting for were mostly investors. And they would say, hey, I remember very specifically, there was a new drug who had maybe just finished clinical trials. It was for peanut allergies.
Okay.
And they wanted me to like help talk them through the results that were like publicly available, asked me a bunch of questions about like clinical trials because I think they were obviously considering making a big investment on the hopes that this drug was going to get approved, the stock price would go way up.
Got it. Okay.
And I had a couple of those, which I found really fascinating. So, they pay me like a couple $100 to, pick my brain about clinical trial and clinical trial results and what does this mean and what could that mean, and
Hmm.
is there anything in your opinion that would make you lean one way? And these were not studies I worked on, to be clear,
Yeah.
nothing,
Yeah. There's not like
fishy. These were things that were already done and rolling, and
and publicly available. They just didn't understand trials and what they
yeah,
were looking at.
right. So, and I mean, obviously, there's the options market out there. People do to swing trade on things just like this already.
Mm-hmm.
So, is it significantly different or impact things any differently than existing markets already do? I don't know.
Well, I think it just has like this perception, like sports betting or betting on
Well, and look, I
things has
think
like an element of like
sports betting sucks. And honestly, I'm sick of watching sports and getting hammered by sports betting ads. Like, I think it's all a terrible idea. And like, you shouldn't gamble away your money. There's a reason that the house always wins is a fucking saying. Um, so again, to be perfectly clear, I think it's all stupid, but I don't know that this is any more stupid than what already
would agree.
exists
I would
out there.
yeah, that's kind of where I like yes, it gives you the ick. It's kind of like it's like more like eye rolly than like gasp.
Yeah.
But
I tend to
see what
agree. We'll
happens.
see what, yeah. And I haven't even gone and looked to see like what kinds of things are bet onable or
Mhm.
what kind of like questions I ask to potentially like weed out, insiders or people who might
Yeah.
otherwise have access that, you know, or the legality of some of these things. I'd be curious to poke around and see.
Yeah.
But I also just can tell you that, I mean, insiders are going to find a way. People are going to find a way to get information that will help them make money, right? Like that's just going to happen.
Weirdly, I'm not concerned that a CRA or a CRC placing like $100 bet on a drug outcome is really what's going to be the conflict of interest or really going to cause the issue. I feel like there's bigger things that we should look at.
I mean,
That's going to cause
but
that.
even though, yes, but I was saying, even though, like, is again, what is the true potential of? I mean, am I going to place a bet against a drug, get the study, and then like screw it up on purpose so that I can make a bunch of money? Like, no, that can't. I mean, again, what we do at the site level is monitored so heavily. Like, it's
Right.
just, I just don't see that. And again, maybe I'm underestimating like the potential for people to do shady things, which is
There's always
probably,
gonna be but, like, that's with sites in general. A site in Florida, I don't know, 6 months
yeah.
to a year, that was just making up fucking data to get paid by a sponsor and, like, throwing shit. Like, there's always gonna be that. There regardless of the framework we give people to operate in, there's always gonna be people who do shit like that. Um, I'm like, yeah, do we need more framework that gives people more opportunities to be dicks about stuff? Probably not, but in the grand scheme of things, like, is this gonna be a massive change or influence on the industry and outcomes? No, I don't think so.
I tend to agree, but It's another nice rallying point for everyone in the industry to be like, we're against this. We don't like it. Which again, to be clear, I'm not for it either. I just think like it's probably not gonna do anything. So yeah, stay tuned. Maybe we'll go on Kalshi and see what we're able to do or not do.
Fund note file. Pay for some of our.
Hey, yeah, there you go. That's a great idea. That's a great idea. If you want to, if you tune in, we have this amazing upgraded studio, then you know that we struck it big, betting on clinical trials. But probably not. Maybe it'll probably be the opposite. I'll be podcasting from a tent because I lost all my money. Well, fair enough. We're about at the end here. Anything else exciting?
No, anything else you want to talk about? Anything else been on your mind recently?
No, I mean, I talked a little bit before the show about, I made a post about my staff unanimously wanting to go back to using paper source documents. To be clear, I mean, still keeping all of our regulatory electronic, but our actual source going to paper. Got honestly like a fairly, you go in the comments, I feel like a lot of sites and even CRAs agree that, they all still prefer paper, but then kind of got beat up by a few vendors in the comments too.
Well, of course.
Well, yeah, that's, fair. It is what it is. But I will say it's not a joke. I really am going back to paper source, at least for the immediate future. And I think maybe we could take another sticky notes or maybe we should have 2 different guests on.
Okay.
One that's like a site who maybe somebody who's for paper and somebody who's like against paper. I think that might be interesting. Like a true, I mean, done this before, but I feel like it's kind of been tongue in cheek, but now I actually feel like it's a real discussion.
Well, I mean, it's kind of our stance a little bit ish. Like, you're going back to paper. I work for a vendor who makes eSource. We're kind of there.
That's
right?
true. I mean, well, that is true. But I think it'd be curious to get some other outside opinions from people who, and again, there were sites, and also I want to be clear, like, there's nothing wrong inherently with eSource, I don't think. I think if you're a site and it works for you and you've managed to like build it into your workflow or build your workflow around it, if you are, very decentralized, there's a lot of good reasons why you would want to use eSource. Perfectly fine with that. I think if you're small and relatively, local, it may not provide a bunch of extra value.
I mean, what was the thing that recently, like, over 60% of academic sites use paper for their source? Because a majority of their source is in the EHR, but it's not all of their source. And so for the additional stuff, like, why would you get another system and re-enter everything? Like it, and like, to your point, I think there's a lot of situations where like creating a digital version of a paper process just adds another system without much benefit. But I do think they're all like, but it also depends on what you're talking about, like benefit as far as efficiencies, but then oversight and quality, is there variability there? Is there difference when you move to electronic? So I think there's a balance.
That's what I'm saying. I wouldn't mind actually digging down a little bit deeper into some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Not just again, I think when I said it, there were at least one, if not some people who thought like, oh, he's just saying this to be like, provocative or silly. But I mean, I'm not. I legitimately, and I'm also being serious when I've talked to other sites who have recently done the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a legitimate and, interesting conversation.
Well,
so.
I mean, I would agree, because I think like we're Aviva, we're just launching our eSource, but for a long time, I mean, the conversation we had is we didn't want to build an eSource. It just is, it's not like as eSource stands today in the market, I think a lot of that is just digital paper. It's not. Right. It doesn't. So it's like, for us, it was like, this isn't exciting. This doesn't actually move the needle. It doesn't make it better unless we can do something different. So like, similarly, like, I think we understood that like how it is doesn't make sense. And I also think to your point, like, it depends on who you are and how your site runs and what that looks like as to when it does make sense as it stands versus what the potential of it is and how that looks. But I also think too, there's as in everything, it's technology, but it's also the process and the people have to adopt it in a way that it makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think it's I don't know, it's an interesting triangle of interaction.
I don't disagree.
Well, we'll have to have people on. So I guess if there's anyone who wants to join that conversation specifically about eSource versus paper, eSource as it stands today, futures of eSource, I think we could have that conversation.
Yeah, if you're watching and you're like extremely passionate about one side or the other, hit us up, because I would love to actually set something up, whether it's like a true like debate or whether it's 2 separate episodes with like arguments from each side. I think it'd be really interesting to dive a little bit deeper potentially into that.
So I guess send Notifile LinkedIn a DM, one of us a DM, or reach out. Notifile.com has a contact us page where you can fill out your information and we'll get at you.
Yep. And we'll be back
next Tuesday.
Rock and roll. All right, guys. See you next week.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to Note to File. We're committed to continuing to bring you independent and unfiltered coverage of the clinical trial industry.
We want to talk about what you want to hear. So if you have something on your mind, hit us up at notetofilepodcast.com.